and welcome to this video. In this video, let's see how to install Mautic on HestiaCP. If you don't know, Mautic is an open source email marketing and marketing automation tool. So let's see how to install it. So instead of paying loads of money on MailChimp, you can use Mautic instead. And I'm going to show you how to install it on HestiaCP, which is also a free control panel that is available to everybody for free. So there we go. That is HestiaCP. And I'm just going to use the same HestiaCP that I used in the last Hetzner video. The same dedicated server that I showed you how to buy and set up on Hetzner. So I'm just going to use the same server. Before I delete it, let me show you how you can install Mautic on HestiaCP. So this is a brand new install of HestiaCP. The first thing I need to do is to create a new user, and this user is going to be used for adding websites. So I can call it whatever, but since I'm going to use Mautic, I can just use Mauticus. I can use that as a username. I can use anything there, email. I'll just use a sample email, sample@sample.com, and then password. I'll just generate a password. Anything specific that I need to add for this user. I want the role to be a normal user. Packages, I'll use the default package. I'm just going to click on save. And if I click on the user, so let's come back to users. I want to edit something about this user. So this is a feature in HestiaCP. Users will not be allowed to log into SSH by default, but you can change that. So we are not going to log in as this user by default. I'm going to log in as the root user, then I'll switch to this user, and I'll have to give it access to SSH, and I can just do that by changing the shell that they'll use. I'll select bash. PHP, I only have one PHP installed. If you watched the last video, you saw that I did not install multiple PHP versions. And then I'll save. Just for preparation for installing Mautic on HestiaCP, let's create a domain. So this is a domain where your Mautic is going to run, but we have to go to users and just click on the username. If you're the admin user, you can click on any user and that will log you in as that user. So you can see this user doesn't have any domains. So for this example, I'm going to use Cloudflare, and I just need Cloudflare for DNS, nothing else. Okay, the security is an added bonus, but I just need it for DNS. I'm going to use this domain as an example, but I'm not going to use the domain itself. I'm going to use a subdomain. So I can add a record. The domain I want to use is, you can call it whatever, mail, email, marketing, whatever. And I can just call it MA. And the domain will be ma.digivites.com. So I'm just going to copy that, and the IP. Let me come here and I want to add domain. I'm just adding it there so that I don't lose it. I don't lose it from my paste bin. So I'm going to come here, and my IP was this. You saw me buy this server in the last video from Hetzner, dedicated Hetzner robot, Hetzner dedicated servers. So I'm just going to paste that there. That's the domain. The A record is that. And this is a bare minimum I need to get the website to work. Just that. And I'll just leave it proxied because that comes with a bunch of security that I definitely need. So let's come back to HestiaCP. So that's the domain I want to add. This is where I'm going to install Mautic. I can enable DNS support, and I'll also enable mail support. So right now, mail is not going to work because our DNS don't have the right records. So I'm just going to save this. Let me click back on the domain so as to try and issue SSL, because Mautic 5 definitely requires SSL. So I'm going to use Let's Encrypt, enable automatic redirection, and I can also make it strict. If I receive any error, I'll just come back and disable that. Save. Hopefully my DNS has propagated, because if it hasn't, this is going to fail. Good. Everything seems to have gone okay. Definitely what I want to see. So now that I have this domain, if I go back to web and I go here, you'll see it's just an, let's wait and see. It's just a blank domain, but SSL is enabled for the domain. So these are just preparations that we're making before we start to install Mautic. The next thing, let's go back. Let me just click on it, and there's something I want to explain in advance, because it's important. I want you to follow this video step by step, because if you don't, you're going to mess up and you're going to come back asking lots of questions that are already answered in the video. So the first thing is, if I click here under advanced options, at some point, once I've installed Mautic, and the way I'm going to install it is a recommended way using Composer. So I'm going to install everything that I need for it to work. Once I install it here, I'm going to need to go to the web to continue with the installation. At that point, once that is done, I'm going to come here and I will need to change the route to reflect where Mautic is. Okay, so just wait, we'll get there. And since I'm on HestiaCP, I should have started with this, but here it is anyway. My Hestia installation is Nginx and PHP FPM. I'm not using Apache, so bear that in mind. So the reason I'm doing that is because I saw down here there is a template for Mautic that I can use. Nice. So that means we can use Mautic with Nginx and PHP FPM. If your server is a small server, a small VPS server, I highly recommend you go with this setup, Nginx, PHP, FPM, because Apache uses more resources than this setup. So I'm going to save. And also PHP, if you needed to change the PHP version right here, you could do so, but I only have one PHP installed. I didn't install multi-PHP with Hestia, which is also a possibility. So I'm going to save. Okay, that's the first bit. Now the next bit, let's log into the server, and we're going to go step by step, Googling what we need and getting the right code for what we need. So here, let me log into my server. We logged into the server. I can just check if there are any updates. Update. Control L, clear the screen. Okay. So before you continue, if you're on Windows, you've heard me say this before. Download Git, use Git Bash. Don't use anything else. Download Git, use Git Bash. Don't use Party, use Git Bash. That will give you the opportunity to follow along with me with everything I do. So when you log into your server via SSH, you can use Party, you can use Git Bash. Switch to the other user. What was the name of that user? Let me figure out the user name. ls/home. Okay, the user that I created was Mauticas. The next thing, I want to use Tmux to separate the terminal, to divide the terminal at least into two panes, and that's going to enable me to type some things as root and some things as the root, as the user that I will be using for installing Mautic. All right, so let me install Tmux. apt install Tmux. So of course, if you're not the root user, just use sudo apt install Tmux. All right, Tmux is installed. So if I was to do Tmux, there we go. I'm now in a Tmux session. I can separate my screen. Control B, Shift apostrophe. That's going to give me two terminals. Control B, up arrow will take me to the upper pane. So in the upper pane, I want to switch to the other user. I can just do su dash. Since I'm the root user, I'm not going to need a password. Su dash more tickers. you can do an ls. I already know the directories which are inside here, but probably you don't. So if you do an ls, it will show me the directories which are here. And we want to go into web, so I will go into web, cd into web, and then inside of web, if you don't know which directory to go to, you can just press tab twice, and if there are multiple directories, it's going to list them. If there's only one, it's going to give me that like it has given me here. So after that, you can also press tab twice and consecutively twice, and it's going to show me the directories which are in that directory. So inside of that directory, I'm going to go into public HTML. Right, so there we go. So this is where we're going to start. But one thing, ls, you see that we have these files here, so I'm not going to touch them. For now, this is the root directory of our domain, right? But we're going to change that once we install Mautic. Now let's go back to Google and we're going to search for how to install Composer, because I believe Composer is not there. Let's go and install Composer, and we also need to install npm. So npm I can quickly install. So if I do Control B, the bottom arrow, that's going to bring me to the lower pane, and I can install npm apt. So I can safely say apt, because if you're using HestiaCP, you're either using Ubuntu or you're using Debian. Apt install npm. This is needed for the installation, so make sure you install it. If you don't, you're going to get an error. So install that. I can install Composer. Let me search for Composer. Composer install. So let me go Composer. If you come here, just copy all of this. Copy. Let me wait for this to finish, because I actually want to do it here. I want to do it in this terminal that is busy. So let me bring all these items here. Control V. So this is going to install Composer. You can see what it is doing there. Okay. And once it's installed, I'm going to, this is an optional thing, but I'm just going to do this. I'm going to do this, copy, and this usually adds it to the path of your Linux terminal, right? So when somebody runs just Composer, it's going to work. If you don't do it like this, you're going to have to run PHP Composer far to do anything. We don't want to do that. So let me copy, and then I'll come back and I'll just put it here along with this, and I'll run them together. Come back to the terminal. It is complete. So let me go to the lower terminal once again. Control B, press the lower arrow, Control L to clear the screen, and I want to do this inside of the TMP directory. Control Shift V everything that I've just pasted there. There we go. So now if I was to do Composer -V, okay, do not run Composer as the root user, but sure, why not? I just want to see the version. Control L. So Control L, install. Is there anything I need to install? I've installed Composer, and so I don't think there's anything else. All the other PHP required packages are already installed in HestiaCP, and you can always check that. If you do PHP-M for modules, it's going to list all the modules, and you can check them. So you can see one of the modules needed by Mautic is that, and you can see it is there. So Control C to get out of that. Control B. Let me go back there. Here as well, let me try to run Composer. There we go. Composer is working. So well and good. Let's continue with the installation. The next thing, let's search for how to install. Let's search for install Mautic. Now this is a recommended way to install it. You can download it and put it in your server and just run it, but this is a recommended way. So in future, you won't have any problems if you install it like I'm showing you in this video using Composer. Bear that in mind. I know there are other ways to install it, but those are for the older Composer versions. In future, those are probably going to get deprecated. So installation, you can install it using the production package, download it, put it on your server, or you can install from the command line. Don't do that. You can install locally by cloning from GitHub. If you're developing, yes, do that. In production, just use the installing with Composer. So I'll click on that link. Let's scroll down. The only thing I need from here is this. I'll just copy this. This is what I need. Let's bring it back to the terminal. Control-Shift-V. Here you'll see there's something like some directory. So this is just a directory name where everything is going to work, where everything is going to be done, I mean. So inside of this directory, right now we're inside of the public HTML, but we need to do this inside of a directory. All the files downloaded and so on, you can do that. If you don't want to do things inside of a directory, make sure the public HTML is empty, completely empty. Okay, and I can actually show you that because I know some people probably want to do this in the public HTML directory. So I'll put that there and enter. So if I do an ls-lah, you can see we have some files in there. So you can remove rm, everything inside of this directory. So make sure you're inside of the directory when you're doing that. It's going to remove all the items which are there. Once you do that, you can now install it by just adding a dot. You can just add a dot, and that will signify we want to do this in the public HTML. Or you can create a directory, which is what I want to do because it helps to contain everything where it's supposed to be. So I'm going to put everything in a folder called Mautic. And I'll just press enter to continue. If any errors occur, remove Control A, remove the hash at the end. That is a comment. So enter. And I want to make the screen bigger, so Control B. There you go. So let the installation continue. And if we face any errors, we are going to fix them as we face them. So you can see npm is being used there. So that's why you needed to install it. All right, there you go. If you see everything went well like that, it means that you don't have a problem. If there's any warning you're being told, you can take advantage. You can look at it and see what it is. You can also remove the plugin that shows this message. Just run Composer remove Multicore project message, but I'm not going to remove it. It doesn't affect my installation. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to do Control L to clear the screen, and then I can show you what is inside, what actually Composer has done for us. So I'm going to do ls, and when you do ls, you can see the folder that we chose to put everything inside of has been created, and that's the one called Mautic. So if you do ls Mautic, you can see inside of this file, everything is there. The items that are public, the items that should be public and the public should see in this folder called docroot. So this is what I was telling you, that you are going to need to change your document root. If you don't change it, you're going to have a problem. But this is easy when you're using HestiaCP, and I'm going to show you where to change it. So ls Mautic docroot. So inside of docroot, this is where everything is that will be publicly accessible. So I'm just going to copy this directory as it is. Right, whichever name you gave to the directory, or if there is no directory, like I showed you how to just use the dot, you'll just put the docroot as the directory. So I'm just going to copy this, and I'll come back to HestiaCP, and So go to edit the domain. If you don't know how to edit the domain, go to webs, your domains. I want to edit this domain. So under web, just click on the domain you want to edit. And if you come down here, click on advanced, click on custom document root. Right now, that is the root, public HTML, but we want to change it to that. So which one was it? Mautic doc root. Let's come here and I'm just going to paste it like that. Mautic doc root. So you can see it's telling you that will be your new home directory. That will be the public directory for where the server will go look for files to show when people access your domain. So I'm just going to save. If there's any error with your entry, it's going to tell you. So if I was to come here and refresh, we should see the page for installing Mautic. And now we're seeing that there's a recommendation here. So let me see what the recommendation is. We have detected some things. All right. The memory limit setting in your PHP is lower than 512. All right. That's not a problem. HestiaCP makes this very easy. So let's come back here. Let's just log out of this user. If you click that, it logs you out of that user. Then let's go into settings, click on the gear icon, and let's scroll down until we get to PHP. So I'm going to edit that, and I want to change the memory to 512 MB. Save that. And if I go back, I can restart PHP by clicking on that refresh icon. Now, if I come back and I refresh, there we go. The error is gone. Now, the next step, let's go to the next step. And the next step, of course, is to create our database. Let's come back to HestiaCP. And I want to just click on that because I want to go to users. And this is a user with our domain. So I'm going to click on it to log in as that user. And I will come to DB. And I want to create a database here. So add database. I'll call my database Mautic, and the name is the one that includes your username. So copy the one down there, copy. Let's come here and DB port, database name. And then database table prefix, you can add this for security. Just add any random character there. And let's go back to DB. We need a username for our DB. So Mautic user. And as well, copy the name that has your username down there. Database username there, that's the username. All right, the next item is the password. So let's generate a password. Control A, Control C. I will save that, and then I will paste the password there. And this is just for the backup, so you can also change that into whatever you prefer. Go to the next step. So that's a good sign. Our database connected successfully. Mautic installation admin user. So create an admin user, just like in WordPress when you usually create an admin user. So in this case, I can call mine admin 30 again. This is just a sample that I will delete instantly, and I will just use the same password for the DB. It's the last item I copied. First name, email address, and I can use my email here, Bizanosa @gmail.com. So that's my real email. If you need support, you can go to the website or you can email me. So next step. All right, Mautic is installed. Mautic is installed. Keep me logged in. Log in. There you go. You now have Mautic installed. Now, of course, something else that you need to do is set up your cron jobs. And that one as well, HestiaCP makes it easy to do. If you come here and you go to Cron, for this user that's running your website, you can add your cron jobs here. So let's look at the crons that we need to add, and I'm going to show you a sample how you can add them, and after that you can add the rest. Let's go to Google, let's go to DuckDuckGo, whichever search engine you're using. Let's search for Mautic Cron, and then we'll go to cron jobs here, mautic.org, docs, cron job. Under cron jobs, you're going to see there are also required cron jobs. They are optional cron jobs. So let's look at the required cron jobs. So the first one here is segment cron. So I'm just going to copy the entire thing, copy, and you need to edit it with the path of your PHP. So Control V, you need to find bin console. Where your bin console is, you need to change that there. And let me show you where to get it. If you come back here, let's do ls. Okay, so let's go into Mautica. So it's in Mautica tab, enter. And if I do ls, you can see we have bin right there. So if I was to do pwd for the present working directory, actually, when you're working with cron, usually just add the full path to things. Just use the full absolute path. So in this case, here under Mautica, we need to go into bin and console, right? So we need to go that /bin/console. So I'm just going to copy the entire thing there. So wherever your bin is, find it, okay? That bin directory, wherever it is, find it. It will be in the same directory as your doc root. Since I didn't copy everything, I copied all the way up to bin. I'm going to use this, Control V. So let's just confirm /home Mautica web that anything missing there, bin console. So this, even if you are to run this on your, if you are to run this in your terminal, Control Shift V, enter, and you don't receive any error, it means that that is okay, and you can add it to your cron jobs. So let's go back here into cron, and for the user where your domain is running, click on cron and you can add a cron job. So the command that you've just created, enter it here, enter it like that, and we can generate a cron job for minutes, hourly, or whatever. Let me generate for minute, right? If you want your cron jobs to run every minute, that's how it should be. Let's say you want to run it every 3 minutes, you can do so as well. Just put /3. That will be every 3 minutes. Every 30 minutes will be /30. In this case, this is my server. This is a dedicated server. Also, if you're on a VPS, you're not sharing with other people, your cron job can run every minute as long as it's not overpowering the server. So I'm just going to save. So that's the first way that you can add a cron. But you can see the issue with this is that you're going to have to, let's go back. You're going to have all the cron jobs here, which is something you probably want to do. If this is a preferred way for you, you can add it like this. So let's say you want to add the next cron job. Where is cron jobs? Cron jobs, there we go. So keep the segment current. So under the required crons, let's add the next cron. The first one we've added. Now you can see there's also a batch. If maybe you have server limitations, you want to limit anything, you can do that with that. Maybe batch limit, you just add it at the end there. Batch limit to 300, batch limit to 500. That is the number of items that will be processed at once. You can do that here. Maybe you have millions of subscribers, you have hundreds of thousands, you want to do it in batches, you can do so here. And then there's also max contacts. All right, so let's see how to set up the next cron. The next cron is keep campaigns updated with applicable contacts. So copy that again. Let's bring it here. And as we've said, the only thing that we need to change is the location to our console. So copy that and add that there. Control V and copy that and add it, just like I've shown you how to add that. All right. But there's also another way you can add all these crons in one file. So if, for example, you want to add the next cron job to execute campaign events. So let's go back here and I will paste that in there. All right. So you can add them one at a time. There are also other cron jobs, which are optional cron jobs. You can add those optional cron jobs. This is also under mandatory ones, so make sure you add that as well. And then there are optional cron jobs here. You can add this as well, whichever one you'll need. So make sure you do your research which cron jobs you're going to need. You can just put them in one file and then you'll add that file as your cron right here. So let's see how to do that. Let's come back here. Let's convert this into a shell script, into a small shell script that you can use as your cron job. So up here, you're just going to add the shebang bin bash or bin sh, but I prefer bin bash. Then you put this in a file. Let's say we put the file here. We can call our file vi cron. Let's call it croned. Call it whatever you prefer. .sh. vi croned.sh. And then I'm going to paste everything inside here. Control Shift V to paste everything there. All right. And then I'm going to escape. So this makes it easier. Next time you want to add your cron jobs, you can just add them inside here. So I'm just going to escape and then Shift ZZ to save. All right. So now that we have that, we can actually try to run it to see if there's any problem. So we're going to do bin bash. There we go. If you don't see a problem, then it's okay. But you know what? Let's introduce a problem. Let's come here and we're going to introduce a problem. There's one of these that usually brings a problem. Which one is it? Is it create column? Nope. Let's see if this is the one that's going to give us a problem. Copy. Let's come back here and I'm going to do YYP. Shift A to go to the end of the line. Control Shift V to paste. Shift ZZ. Let's try to run it again. Okay, yeah. So that's the one that usually brings this problem. So let me just remove it. So I can just do DD to delete it. Escape, Shift ZZ. Just learn to use Vim. It's quite easier to use. If we want to set this cron, as at now, if you were to look at all the crons that we have, we can see cron tab -L, enter. You go. You see, this is a cron that we added via HestiaCP. So let's go back to Hestia and delete it, and then we add this new cron. So let's just delete the cron, and then we can add another cron job. So you're going to add bin bash cron. Okay, you see, can you see the problem? We need to tell it the exact path of this item. So the exact path, let's look at present working directory. We can copy that. Okay, so that should be okay. And then we're going to generate our cron. Maybe we want it to run every minute. I mean, every 2 minutes. So let's save. After we save, let's come back and look at our cron. And there you go. It will run every 2 minutes. That's an important part. I didn't want to leave it out. You can set up your cron like that. But if you don't want to deal with that thing, create a file, just paste all your crons in there. So this video, even if it's long, I believe it will be helpful for many years to come, because Mautic has decided that the way to install Mautic would be through Composer, just like I've shown you in this video. So share this video with anyone. If you're in a forum and somebody wants to see how to install Mautic, share this video with them. Somebody has a question that is in this video, you can bookmark a specific section, send them the link, and I hope it's going to help as many people as possible, especially considering how much it costs on email marketing platforms. Look at them: MailChimp, GetResponse, all the others, very expensive, but you can have your own email marketing right here on your server. So if you need this installed, you need help installing it, or you have a problem with your Cron, you can always contact me on my website, Bizanosa. We provide Linux server support. If you need to install a control panel to run multiple websites, you need to run multiple sites on the same server, you need to migrate your cloud somewhere else, just contact us. We'll be able to assist you. Everything is on the website. The pricing is publicly displayed on the website. If you need help, just feel free to contact us. And these prices are always increasing. Sometimes I increase the price because of demand, and once it goes up, of course, it never goes down, right? We offer one-time support services. If you need a server setup, control panel setup, that falls under one-time setup. If you have a server and you just need help managing it every month, we have that as well. If you have a small problem that's troubling you, just contact us, we'll help you fix it. And believe me, these are some of the most affordable prices for Linux support. You can do your research online. You're going to find something like what is provided here is probably $2,000, over $500 plus. Okay, so maybe one day we'll get there, but for now, these are our prices. Talk soon. If you have any problem, if you have any questions, let me know in the comments below. Until next time.